Hey there, legal warriors. In this video, we're going to answer a viewer question. It's a question that I get a little bit of flavor of at times from clients, but the viewer question is, what are the best practices to explain what comes up on a background check if you've been accused of or convicted of some type of crime? And it can apply to anything. And so I have my own ideas of what best practices are, what I've seen clients deal with for 25 years of defense work. So if you're interested in this area of the law, stay tuned. This is the video for you. My name is Lance Fryrear. I'm a defense attorney in Linwood, Washington. My law firm's been defending people charged with crimes all throughout Washington State for more than 25 years. And I'm putting out these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this useful, please like and please subscribe. More people get to see it. More people get the help they need. Now we're just going to jump right into it. Let's start with question one. Will it show up on my background check? Now, that's not what this video is about, but the short answer is yes, probably. And why will something show up on the background check? Because big data rules the world, right? There's nothing that is private. There's nothing that is secret anymore. And a background check is not some monolithic, single type of, it's not some single type of, the speaker of truth. There's not a single speaker of truth for a background check. In other words, there's a whole bunch of different companies out there that are more than willing to take some employer's money or some neighbor's money who wants to run and snoop into any time somebody's been in court. And anytime someone ends up in court or ends up arrested, you can bet your bottom dollar that these companies are going to collect that information and they're going to sell it because it's profitable. And in Washington State, there aren't consumer protection laws that are going to make these private companies disgorge or remove things from their database because, sue me if you don't like it, is what these companies will say. So your official record, whoever, is maintained by the State Patrol, and sometimes somebody might go to the official record, your State Patrol record, at a low cost and run that record, and that's going to be more predictable what's there. So is it going to show up? Yes. So if it shows up, again, now the topic of the video, how do we explain it? How do we talk about it? Well, from 25 years of clients, what I have seen is that background checks are typically pass-fail, right? By the time someone gets to a background check, not all the time, but oftentimes it's a pretty strong candidate they're looking to hire. And the company's going to have their own way of doing things. Most of the time, the company will not have some type of automatic fail if someone's been accused of or charged of or arrested for a crime. Certain sensitive types of work may be different, and everyone's going to have their own different experience. But most of the time, if you don't have a conviction, they still may ask you about, hey, what happened here on the case, okay? So my typical advice is how to explain things is we want to keep it short and simple. The more words we use, the worse it is, because the more we're talking, the more we're explaining. Usually the more of the explaining, we seem defensive, we seem suspicious, and therefore we're not looking good. So let's say I had a shoplifting charge, and I got picked up, and I went to court, and I got the case dismissed, but I'm applying for a job, and it shows up, hey, there's a theft charge out of a certain court, and it shows dismissed, and the employer goes, well, what happened with this theft charge? Well, in that case, I would be, short and simple. I might say something like, for me, hey, that was a difficult time in my life. I made a mistake, in not paying for an item. Happily, the court took into account the circumstances, and they ended up dismissing the case, right? The court took into account the circumstances. We don't need to get into excuses why, or we don't need to get into making up stories that I just forgot to pay for it, right? Because what you're doing in those cases, we already know in this situation, it's probably discretionarily talking to someone about whether or not they're going to offer the job. You've not been disqualified, or you wouldn't be talking. So remember, when you're oftentimes explaining something to a potential employer or someone, they're really judging how we come off. And so again, the more words we use, typically we come off more defensive. That's something you want to avoid. Same thing if you're in an argument with a loved one or a spouse, right? When you use more than 5 or 6 words, those extra words are explaining, defending, attacking. They usually don't work out in our favor. So what's another thing we want to take into account if we're having to sort of explain our criminal history or lack thereof, or something that might be appearing on a background check that we don't like? Well, we are allowed to ask questions, right? hey, what is showing up? You mentioned my background check. What's showing up on it? Because I always want to make sure that it's accurate. Sometimes on these background checks, it may not show an outcome in the case, right? It may not show an outcome. Let's say in this hypothetical shoplifting case, it said someone was charged with shoplifting. The case was dismissed, but it doesn't show in their record the case was dismissed. Well, you can always ask for a copy of the record, and then you could maybe potentially also ask an attorney that helped you. You might ask them, give them a call and say, hey, how can I make my employer understand this? And while I can't promise we would do this for every case, but many times my firm has written a letter explaining what an outcome was, because lay people out there, employers, even other state employers who might be applying for a job in Minnesota, they may not know, what happened in a Washington case, especially if they're going to a background check company that's not doing a good job updating their records, right? Because many times these employers, they'll have a contract with a certain company, and they take whatever gets spit out to them as absolute truth. But we have seen cases where what got spit out to the employer was inaccurate and was not true. And so if you're getting a really hard time, they're telling you you're disqualified because of something, you would likely want to ask them, hey, can you tell me or give me a copy of the record? And if you can't, can you tell me what source you're using so I can try to get myself run and make sure that it's accurate, because I'd really like to work here, right? Now, another thing that we get asked often is, should I tell someone where I'm applying for a job, that I already have a problem ahead of time? Well, I say it depends. What is your experience with how often this is coming up? Do you know, as a matter of fact, that you've been denied a job because of something in your background check? Not suspect, as a matter of fact, right? Because a lot of us want to make excuses. Well, I didn't get the job, I didn't get a call back, it must be because of this on my record. You can't make that assumption, right? There's so many reasons people may get a call back or not. If you apply for work at my firm, you might be a great candidate. I might just be really busy. It didn't happen to get to it. Or the person I have running things might be really busy. It didn't happen to get to it. So if we know for a fact that you've been told this is disqualifying for a certain place, you might say, hey, I want you to, then you might want to reveal it. Hey, just so you know, I do have this interesting thing on my record, I don't want it to stand in the way of this opportunity for me to be able to perform for this firm, this company, this job. And so if this is at all a concern to you, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. That type of character in those situations, that's going to mean something, right? Employers are looking for people. If they have the people that they want to work with, people of integrity, people that work hard. So if it doesn't automatically disqualify you and it's only discretionarily, that type of lead may end up with you in a much better outcome. So what's the unifying theory here, right? The unifying theory is if something on your background is disqualifying, you automatically, well, then it doesn't matter how you explain it, right? Because it's disqualifying. If someone's bringing it up to you, then it's likely not automatically disqualifying, and so that's a matter of how we say it. What our nonverbal communication is, what our verbal communication is. Are you creating that feeling of trustworthiness where they are willing to overlook the fact that you as a candidate has this potential problem, which they're allowed to accept, but which they don't have to? And so that's what I say. I can only tell you what I've seen from my clients, what I imagine helps best. I haven't been in that situation myself, but I know that I have interviewed people that have applied for work here who have criminal background type stuff on their record, and I just talk to them, right? And if they, are solid with it and they own it, I'm not worried about it affecting future performance. Why would I care, right? Stuff happens in life, and just because there's something on our record doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us, doesn't mean that we're not able to do the job. So I hope you found that useful. If so, please like it, please subscribe. More people get to see it, more people get the help they need, and more importantly, if you have a criminal matter in Washington State, feel free to reach out to our firm. If we get on board, we'll listen to what happened, we'll identify a way forward, and we will be there for you. Thank you.